So, you think you know your best colors, but you hate them. I happen to love the light, mermaid-like colors of my palette, Light Summer, because it honors my very delicate, feminine-leaning style. If you are more of a grungy, sensual person, then you might feel a little bit lost at first with a palette like that. Well, here's the secret. You do not have to submit to your palette in its entirety and throw away everything that you love about yourself and your own style as it stands today. On the other hand, you don't have to dismiss color seasons altogether. In this video, I'm going to show you how you combine the 12 color seasons with my style roots method, so you can come away with a personalized palette that works for you, your taste, as well as your features. My name is Ellie-Jean, I'm a style consultant, and on this channel, we find our style by finding ourselves. That many people have with color seasons comes from the fact that they're hit with this palette of colors and often the stereotypes of that palette, the most extreme versions of the colors in that palette, and then don't spend the time to look at the nuances of that palette and the huge range that every color season has. It is a huge myth that summers only wear pastels, or that autumns only wear neutrals, and that winters only wear really bright colors. All of this is just the stereotypes of that season, so don't worry too much about that. There are so many different combinations within the palettes that are going to work for you. I have spent a lot of time selecting colors from the color palettes that work for each style route. Now, if you don't know what my style routes are, I believe that there are 8 routes that each of us are influenced by in fashion, and most of us have a top 3 that we draw from in our everyday style. And it might take a little bit of work to find your top 3, but once you have, your style will feel really cohesive. Now, I couldn't go through every single combination in this video because it would be like hours long, but I am going to break down the principles of each style route so that you can find those colors within your palette. If you want to work out your style routes before we begin, I really recommend checking out my style streams exercise, which is the best method for finding your style routes. I'm also going to show you a season that finds that style route particularly hard because of the stereotypes of their palette, just to show you how to practically do this. However, I have been working on something, and if you want the exact style routes for every single color season and see exactly your personalized palettes, I am so excited to announce the Ultimate 12 Color Seasons Guide. I have been working on this for weeks and weeks. You can purchase this in the description. It's £25, and it includes a compact palette with the most basic colors to inspire you. It includes an extended palette by style route, as well as a palette showing your best neutrals and your best colors, as well as a couple of mood boards. And the palette includes all 12 seasons, so you can compare, see the differences, take inspiration from whatever you think will help you in your style. So that link is in the description and in the comment section. So if you're interested, I would be super excited if you guys went ahead and took a look. So before I go through each of the style routes, I thought I would share some main principles of how to find colors that you love within your season. So first of all, it's important to note that colors convey certain emotions, certain feelings. This is like a huge psychological study. So colors are associated with certain things, like blue is associated with calmness, red is associated with very passionate feelings, green is associated with nature, healing, and so on. So the colors you wear say something about what you want to express. 2, colors can do a lot of heavy lifting in an outfit. Silhouettes are obviously hugely important, but color can tell a story all by itself. Even if you took outfits with completely the same silhouette and put them in different colors, it would say a lot about that person. 3, what is light and dark, warm, cool, bright, and soft within each palette varies. What is light for a light summer is going to be very different to what light looks like on a dark autumn. So when I say, for example, with flower, you need to wear light colors, doesn't mean you should extend beyond your palette. You should just look for the lightest colors within your palette. 4, don't be afraid of the uniqueness that combining these things together brings. The really cool thing about using these theories as restraints is that it builds creativity. You end up with something that might not have been done before. Like if no one has seen edgy being done with these specific colors, then that could be like a really cool, like unique selling point of your style, if that makes sense. Just because it's not the stereotype of a style that you're going for doesn't mean that it's bad, and it's actually likely to bring a lot of depth and variety to your style and make it really unique and cool. And lastly, for the section that I'm about to go into, although you have 3 style routes and you should kind of pick the colors of your everyday wardrobe using those routes, I recommend you also look at these routes in terms of other things you're doing in your life. Like you can take mountain as inspiration for general professional events. In this particular instance, I don't recommend that in general, but in terms of this video, I think that would be really helpful. So the 8 style routes and how to present them in your style using your color season. Flower. So you're looking within your palette for the lightest tones, the pastel-y tones, so that includes any pinks, purples, blues, greens in your palette, any color that's close to a pastel, any beiges or creams. And so going back to what I was just saying a little while ago, wearing baby pink when you're a dark autumn is never a good idea, even if you have a style route, because it's going to contrast with your features and it's going to look like you're putting on a costume of someone who dresses light and feminine, and it's not going to feel like you. But if, say, you wore a terracotta rose as a dark autumn, that's still going to feel very feminine, very delicate, very light and airy on you, and it's not going to feel like a costume. Fire. You're looking for the reds, the deep pinks, the fiery tones like the oranges, the most tropical tones in your palette. For example, Soft Summer may struggle with the fire style route as they don't have anything bright in their palette, but wearing powdery versions like powdery reds, powdery lush purples, grape tones is going to be amazing. Moon. So you're looking for the darkest colors in your palette, of course. You're looking for any grays, reds, purples, greens, any dark versions of like the main colors. Light springs are a type that I could see really struggling with Moon, but actually they have a lot of greens, browns, even purple in their palette, and you can end up with more of a witchy kind of impression. So this is a great example of what I was talking about earlier of the uniqueness. So a light spring is going to be really overwhelmed by black, and it might not even come across as edgy cool. It's going to look like putting on a costume of someone who is edgy, rather than you finding your own style that has that edgy influence. So wearing the darkest tones in your palette is going to look really cool. Earth. So you're looking for any browns, any greens, the rustiest colors in your palette, essentially. Any color of the earth. Now, people sometimes get confused with this. Anything floral is not inherently earth. I would say look at the idea of motifs of daisies rather than motifs of like roses, for example, because daisies are more like weeds. They literally like spring from the earth. That's more earth than flower, if that makes sense. So think of those kinds of colors, so yellows as well. Bright winters are going to struggle very much with earth at first glance because their colors are obviously very bright, quite light in a way, but actually they have forest green in their palette. They can wear chocolate browns, they have a neon yellow, so there's actually quite a lot to work with there. Mushroom. Of course, you're looking for the most neutral tones in your palette. Very minimal colors, nothing bright, nothing flashy. So mostly you're looking at browns, grays, or creams. White, black, of course, is great for mushroom. Essentially the definition of neutral tones, any taupes, pinky tones as well, as long as they're very neutral. None of that sounds like Bright Spring. But what becomes neutral for a color season like that changes. So what appears fairly standard on them might look really bright on a different color season. So I would recommend for a bright spring, oranges and yellows, because yellow to a bright spring is what cream is to a light spring. And orange is what tan is to a soft autumn. Think like Timberlands, they're generally understood as tan, but they're actually basically mustard orange. Sun is, of course, the opposite. We're talking the brightest, boldest, most eccentric colors in your palette. I really recommend looking at primary colors for sun. Soft autumn might struggle with sun as they have very soft tones in their palette. So simply for sun, just go to the top of your palette, the brightest tones you can find there. It doesn't have to be bright red or bright blue. So for a soft autumn, I'd recommend like a warm orange or soft warm pale yellows, maybe like an aubergine. You could also do something like monochrome, making that color the entirety of that outfit, and it's gonna look really fun. I'm thinking about Kate, actually. She has this beautiful can't remember her actual username now, but she has this beautiful purple dress, which is not that much of a bright color, but it comes across as really bright on her because she's a dark autumn, I would say, and it looks really, really bright, even though it's not actually that like saturated in tone. So the last two style routes are not that color motivated. Color can like influence them, but they're not the be all and end all of that style route. So I'm gonna say some things about them. So stone, it's largely based on silhouette because it's essentially the very casual, sporty influence, and neither of those words is essentially associated with color. However, stone lovers tend to be fairly neutral. Stone colors are like a mix of mushroom and earth. So everything applies to those two, I would apply to this. Mountain, again, is very much the formal, professional influence in a person's style. So colors don't play that much of an influence. They look really good in powerful colors. So navies, neutrals, think like what you might wear to an office. So everything that applies to moon and mushroom, I would apply here. For example, this is the True Autumn selection of mountain. So that is what I would do with style routes and color seasons to find colors within your palette that suit you but still honor your taste. And of course, if you want to see this in more depth and get a much bigger understanding of the 12 color seasons and your color season, make sure to check out the ultimate 12 color season guide, which is in my description. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.